Yeah, yeah. Ball so hard, you better believe me, it's scary. It's basketball at the bar with Calvin and Barry. So put a tip in the jar, cause these dudes can really fill it up. Whether it's buckets you need or just a beer in a cup. We're here for fresh conversations and some delicious libations. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. My boys got you covered like you being guarded by paying. From the glove to the claw and everyone else in between. Calvin and Barry got everything that you need. For sure. So sit back, relax, because we're starting the show. It's basketball at the bar. Grab your drinks and let's go. Yeah. Grab a drink and let's go. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Calvin and Barry. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Let's get it.
What's up, ballers? Welcome back to the bar where the takes are hot and the drinks are cold. Calvin, happy Wednesday. We are back in the 808. That's right, we're back on Maui. We had a wonderful time in Sacramento, in San Francisco. I visited LA as well. It was a long 12 days or so, but we're back and we're here for Wednesday night party. So if you're a basketball fan, make sure you smash up that like button down below and please consider subscribing to the channel. We put out fresh NBA content almost daily, except when I'm on vacation. And we are live every single Wednesday night for Wednesday night parties. So Calvin, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, man? I'm good. Good to be back in Maui. It's warm here. It was pretty cold in San Francisco. But yes, had a great time. Never been to a football game and a basketball game within like 3 days of each other. So that was really, really fun. And yeah, lots of basketball to talk about now. We're in full swing here in the NBA season.
Yeah, and we actually tried to do a basketball and a football game in the same day, but that unfortunately didn't work out. Thank you so much, Uber. What's up, Brian? How you doing? We also got the Stream Elements bot running in here. So what is up, everybody? Welcome in.
Nice.
We got a full show today. We're going to talk a little bit about the NBA standings. You know, it's been about 5 games or so into the NBA season for some teams, 3 for others. Unfortunately for our Sacramento Kings, they're currently 0-3. And Calvin, they haven't won a game without us doing post-game here live in Maui. So we will be live tomorrow on Royal Rebounds after the Kings face off against the Memphis Grizzlies. I know the Memphis Grizzlies are a pretty good basketball team, but hey, Calvin, the Kings got us on their side, right?
That's true. And Keegan Murray will be making his first start, so hopefully that helps the Kings out as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Lakers a little bit. We're going to talk about Steve Nash, Klay Thompson. Some injuries were suffered in today's games. And like I said, we're going to kind of go over the standings and, talk about teams we like, we don't like, just kind of give an overall feeling of how the NBA is currently. But you mentioned Keegan Murray and the Sacramento Kings. We got the bouncer here in the chat. Yeah, we got 2 bots here. We got the Stream Elements bot and we got the bouncer bot. Shout out to my guy, Key Kings. What is up? Calvin, we got some Kings fans in here. Let's go ahead and jump here into the Sacramento Kings. So they are officially 0-3. You and I were at the opener against the Portland Trail Blazers. Unfortunately, they lost that game. It was announced today that Keegan Murray will be starting tomorrow's game. I just have to throw it out there that the Kings haven't won a game this year. However, they have a better record than the LA Lakers. Just want to throw that out there. Shout out to Progressive G. Calvin, let's hear your thoughts. Let's rewind it a little bit. Let's talk about Wednesday's season opener against the Portland Trail Blazers. I know we did kind of a short post game before we got kicked out by the staff because we were trying to do it in the arena. But, give me your overall thoughts. Also got to give a shout out to Alfie, man. But give me your kind of overall thoughts on the status of the kingdom right now.
Well, look, we talked ad nauseum all summer long, or at least once the schedule came out, about how difficult it was going to be for the Kings to get off to a good start. Their schedule is brutal, these first 10 to 15 games. And I think a lot of fans, especially after watching the preseason where it was just blowout after blowout after blowout, you got your hopes up really, really high. And then there's a letdown, obviously. So you have to be able to kind of keep things in perspective. There are still a lot of good things to take away from the Kings' start, even though they haven't won a game. Number one, De'Aaron Fox has played out of his mind, great. I mean, if he keeps this pace up, he's an all-star this season for sure. Keegan Murray has been very good. He's not going to start, so hopefully the good play continues for him. And then they've had really, really good shooting at times. Kevin Huerter has been big for them. I'm worried that they're relying a little bit too much on the three-point shot early on. And to me, the biggest issue for them right now, aside from just continuing to get over this hump of being a bad defensive team, is Sabonis. He has been really, really, I'm not sure if it's the way that they're using him or the matchups that he's had. He's struggled so far this season. They need him to be playing at a much higher level if they're going to be competitive.
Yeah. I think it's, we all got so high during the preseason, right, about, wow, the Kings are undefeated and all this stuff. I'll admit, dude, I'm guilty. I was one of those guys, but I was kind of pumping the brakes a little bit, saying, hey, this is still the regular or the preseason. This is a new squad. They did add some new faces. But yeah, the regular season's tough, man. The Western Conference is tough. And, we mentioned the schedule is even tougher. You have teams like the Golden State Warriors and the LA Clippers, who the Kings lost to. Those are two teams that we picked to go pretty far this year in the NBA playoffs, have a lot of talent on paper. I know I, for one, was questioning the Portland Trailblazers, right? I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure what to expect of Portland, right? They kind of did like an on-the-fly rebuild, right? They got rid of McCollum. They had injuries to Lillard, and they're like, okay, we're going to get a good draft pick this year, and then we're going to rebuild on the fly. They trade for Jeremy Grant. They bring in some of these other guys like Gary Payton, and then they draft Shaedon Sharpe. They've been playing exceptionally well. Tonight was the first game they lost. They're basically undefeated up to this point. Damian Lillard, who we'll talk about here in a second, left the game tonight due to a calf injury, but has been playing out of his mind. This Portland team is much better than I anticipated, at least early on they are. But I agree with you, Calvin. We need Sabonis to be a little bit more engaged. I know during the first game I was sitting next to you and you're whispering to me like De'Aaron Fox looks good. I like what De'Aaron's doing. He's being aggressive. That's what you need. But yeah, it's going to take some time for this Kings team to kind of get their legs out and under them and kind of get some rhythm going, because they did add some pieces here. I'm excited to see Keegan Murray in the starting lineup. We didn't see him, on opening night and, much in the other two games, but he was absolutely killing it in the preseason. I don't know what to really expect out of this guy because he is, a rookie. This is going to be his first NBA game starting, but I know I have really high hopes for him, and I know a lot of Kings fans do. What kind of impact do you think Keegan Murray can have in Game 4 for Sacramento?
I think he'll have a great impact, just like he's had a good impact on every game, whether it's preseason or regular season, that he's played in so far in his career. The guy's an incredibly efficient player, a great three-point shooter, but also has tools in his bag to score from other places on the floor, which makes him a really difficult matchup, especially when he's constantly moving and coming off pin-down screens and all this stuff. And then defensively as well, he's also a tough matchup for other teams because he can switch, he can guard multiple positions. But I think just kind of the ease with how he fits into this offense, the fact that he's an automatic shooter, great catch and shoot guy, he really fits in well with this team right now, in that he doesn't have to have the ball in his hands, for 3-4 possessions in a row. They never have to run isolation plays for him in order for him to get it going and get scoring. So
Mike's
he's kind
alive.
of the perfect plug and play guy. What's up, Mike?
What up, Mike? You're live, dude. We missed you. We missed you for the first game. Cal, Progressive G's got a really good point here. Harrison Barnes, what's going on with him? Because he's one of the guys I was kind of circling on the roster where I was like, okay, we saw, what was it, last season? Harrison Barnes started incredibly well, right? Luke Walton's like, I want Harrison Barnes shooting 10-plus threes a game. The guy's an absolute stud. He has not been that guy this year so far. I don't know if it's, adding in Sabonis, if that kind of takes him off his game or what. I also see some comments in here saying that Sabonis is a power forward and not a center. Maybe he needs to be moved to the forward position. I want to hear your thoughts on HB and Sabonis potentially playing the 4, and what that means for the 5. You throw Rashawn Holmes in there, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, when it comes to Harrison Barnes, look, the guy's been a very steady player for a long time in this league. You know, he is, of course, athletic as a human being, but by NBA standards, he's never been the most athletic guy. And I think that now, as he's getting older, the speed of the game, there's so much young talent in there. It might be catching up with him just a little bit. He's always been a streaky shooter. You'll have games where he's knocking down, close to or over 40% of his threes, multiple game stretches, and then all of a sudden he disappears again. So this is kind of status quo, I would say, for Harrison Barnes so far. I expect him to have a better stretch than this, but I also think with every year that passes, he's going to lose maybe another step, or guys are going to catch up to him from an athletic standpoint. And when you're being asked to switch and guard bigger positions and be a knockdown three-point shooter, which he can be at times, but that's not something that he delivers every night out for you. This is kind of what you are going to get. I already knew a lot of people were begging for Harrison Barnes to come off the bench before the season started. It's starting to look like maybe that was the right decision, albeit very early. As far as Sabonis goes, I've always viewed him as a power forward. I'm not so sure in today's NBA if it really matters whether you play power forward or center necessarily. It matters how the team uses you and who you have around you. He's got a fairly small lineup around him right now. I think he's being asked to do a few new things. He is a great playmaker, but they've maybe never needed him to be the primary guy with the ball in his hands, looking for others as he has in the past, as he is right now. I've always thought he was a pretty good low post scorer and a good player with his back to the basket. So I know Key Kings is saying that he needs to be running towards the basket. I think they're maybe taking him too far out of the post in some situations. He had a bunch of blown layups in the game we saw against Portland. Nurkic is a big guy. He's a tough matchup for anybody. But look, I just think that it's a combination of having all these new guys on the floor together and Sabonis' role changing a little bit from not only just what he was on this team last year, but what he's been used to in his entire career. So I think that he's a good enough player. He's going to play through this, but there's going to be some growing pains, obviously, for not just him, but the whole team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think both of these guys, right, in Barnes and Sabonis, are both going through growing pains. I love Mike Brown. This is not any shade towards Mike Brown at all. I love what he's done so far. I love his attitude, his energy, all that stuff. But his system's a little bit different, right? And you go from playing, if you're Harrison Barnes, now you played for 3 coaches in basically a year, right? And I guess you could say the same for Sabonis, right? You played for 3 head coaches in 1 year. So it is some growing pains, and it's going to take some time to kind of fit all these guys in together. I wouldn't hit the panic button yet. It's only 3 games. I'm going to say that right now. But, looking at the rest of the schedule, it doesn't lighten up here for a couple weeks or so.
No, it does not.
So the Kings really have to make something happen here. But all I have to say is, when we were flying back on the plane, I know we were on different flights, but obviously, 5 hours is a long time without Wi-Fi or anything. I couldn't sleep on the plane, so I'm just thinking like Kings basketball the whole time. And I'm like, you know what? Look at the Boston Celtics last year, right? This is a team that was like right around 500.
You're comparing the Kings to the Boston Celtics?
No, I'm just saying this team was like, weren't they at or below 500 at the trade deadline last year?
They had a horrible start to the season.
Yeah,
yes.
And then this team went on to make the NBA Finals. I'm not saying that the Kings are making the NBA Finals. I'm just saying that you can rebound, and that was at the trade deadline, and we're only a week into the season. So there still is plenty of time. But I think right now is the time for experimentation. Throwing some of these different guys in here. Maybe it is a little early to start Keegan Murray. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. We'll throw him out there tomorrow. We'll see what he does. Progressive G wants to know, who would you guys ideally want to start right now And also, before you answer that, Calvin, I do have to throw it out there. I had a lot of fun at the first game, and there was guys all around me yelling, Kevin, Kevin. So we were getting some love for James Ham Jr., but who's your starting five?
Yeah. Well, before I go there, I just want to, you brought up Mike Brown, and I want to add one thing to Mike Brown's impact on this team, even though they haven't won a game yet. They've
a regular season game, Calvin.
Regular season, sorry. They played a very tough schedule so far, obviously, right? They played teams that you expect to have a chance to win it all. They've been down big in all of those games, double-digit leads. They were getting killed by the Warriors. And Mike Brown, his commitment to defense, his ability to call a timeout, bring guys together and say, hey, look, we have to refocus on this side of the ball. They're not the greatest defensive team in the league yet, but you can see that he is having an impact on that. Those are games that before Mike Brown got here, they would have been completely blown away by. It would have been over at the end of the third quarter and no chance of a comeback. He's been able to help them get back into every single game and given them a chance to win all three of these games late in the fourth quarter. So I think that that's important for a young team early on in the season as well.
Yeah, that Warriors game, right? The Kings were down like 20 or something. And you and I we'll talk about this in a little bit. We were supposed to go to that game. We got stuck in some BS, but we were watching that at Topgolf. The Kings were down by like 20, and then all of a sudden I'm looking, they're down by 4. So you're right. It's the defensive end of the ball is important, and it's the don't give up attitude. Because what they give up like 40 plus points in the first quarter of that game or something, and then they kind of settle in and play better defense, and the offense kind of catches up. But go for it. Go back into your starting five.
As far as the starting five goes, I still don't like playing Richaun Holmes and Sabonis together. So I just think that leaves you a little bit too handicapped on defense when teams spread you out, force you into switches. Those two guys are not good enough perimeter defenders to make that work. So for me, I would start Fox, Huerter, Murray, Okpala, and Sabonis. Okpala has been maybe the biggest overlooked revelation to me. When we watch them play in Portland, this guy's not going to do much on the offensive end. I mean, he might get 2 to 3 shots a game, but he is a game changer for this team defensively because, and I'll tell you why he helps De'Aaron Fox out as well. Now Fox, we've been begging for him to be this great two-way player, an elite defender and all that stuff. I still want to see that from him, but there's a lot less pressure on him now. He didn't have to guard Damian Lillard to start that game. Okpala gets, some unfortunate early fouls and has to leave, but this guy is an incredibly versatile defender, and he gives the Kings a type of aspect that they have not had in a long time, a lockdown defender that they can say, hey, tonight you're on Damian Lillard, tomorrow you're on Anthony Davis. Now, I'm not saying he's going to limit both of those guys, hold them to under 10 points every night or whatever, but that's a type of player that the Kings have not had in, I don't even know how long.
Calvin is a huge KZ fan. Dude, I'm surprised you didn't pick up a Okpala jersey, man, when we were at the arena. I thought for sure you were going to grab one of those because every other word on your mouth is KZ, KZ.
I'm hyping him up right now. But no, I'm serious. On a team that's as bad as the Kings are defensively, to have a guy like that, if it weren't for those early fouls, he was absolutely smothering Damian Lillard, who's been one of the hottest players in the league to start that game early in Portland. So I think he's a valuable piece, and I see I see why Mike Brown is so enamored with him and wants him to be in the starting lineup.
How would you rate KZ, on a defensive rating on a scale of like 1 to Mo Harkless? Where would you put KZ on that list?
1 to Mo Harkless? Mo Harkless is the highest on the scale here. No, look.
You get him a 13 or 14 or something?
There are a lot of really good defensive players in the NBA, but there are not very many guys who are his size, 6'8", good size players that you can say, okay, go out and guard the other team's point guard on a given night. There's plenty of really good wing defenders, but you have very few guys in the league that you can say, okay, tonight you're on LeBron, tomorrow you're on Steph Curry, and we expect you to play both of them well. Like Aaron Gordon is the first guy that comes to my mind. They put him on pretty much any whoever they're playing, the other team's best player. It doesn't matter if they're a point guard or a forward. And for guys that are that size, like I said, there aren't many people that can do that in the NBA.
All right, last question about the Kings before we move on, because we got a ton of stuff to talk about here. The bouncer wants to know your prediction for the Kings record after 10 games. He says 3-7, which means the Kings basically have to go 500 from here because they're 0-3 right now. Here's the rest of the schedule. You want to give any predictions, Calvin?
Man, this is tough. I mean, they should beat Charlotte. They should beat Orlando.
Would be the end of this, yeah.
They should beat Charlotte. They should beat Orlando. Those are 2 wins right there. Miami, they're a good team, but they haven't impressed me as much as I thought they would have to start the season. So maybe they can steal one of those games there. I'm certainly not going to go above 3 wins here, though. The rest of these teams are really, really tough matchups.
Yeah, I'm not going to give my prediction until we see tomorrow's game with Murray starting against Memphis, because I think you're right. I think he deserves to start. I think he will be in the starting lineup potentially for the rest of the season. And it's hard to rate this team based on what we've seen out there because some guys have been moving around. And, we'll talk about the rookie ladder here in a little bit. But Keegan Murray is definitely up there, and I think he can help this team get some wins. So I want to see how they play tomorrow night, and then I'll give you my 10-game prediction. I hope they're not 0-4. I heard a stat today that only 8 teams in NBA history have made the playoffs after starting 0-4. And 2 of those teams had Russell Westbrook on that team. One of them was Washington, and one was the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Lakers are
I guess that means the Lakers
0-4.
are going to make the playoffs.
They're 0-4. LeBron's only started 0-5 one time in his life. And this could be a second time. Pretty crazy. Oh, I'm starting at the 5? Oh, my starting 5. Sorry, I thought you were saying I'm starting at the 5. I was saying Maui, I start at the 5, dude, because Calvin and I are the Twin Towers here. But Progressive G, you're going to have to wait for my starting 5 until tomorrow's post game. Sorry about it.
Oh, man. Teaser.
All right. Let's move on here. But Calvin, I think you and I, we had a really, really good week, dude. We had a lot of fun. And, we have some more stuff to talk about. But, I think we better address, the elephant in the room. And, can you just kind of let everybody know what we did on Monday night? How our Monday night was? Because I had a great time. It was
I'm trying to remember what we did.
Unexpected. It was a secret event at a secret location.
Yeah.
We met up with a friend.
You're trying to get me in trouble again here. I already got in trouble for this once.
Hey, this was not my fault, dude. This was James. Shout out to James.
Oh, I know.
Out there.
Yeah.
But you want to kind of give everyone the backstory?
Okay, so we're hanging out in San Francisco. A friend of ours that we went to college with at Sonoma State. Shout out to James Hickman. He wants to meet up that night, and his wife wants to meet up that night. Barry and I are there with both of our girlfriends, so it's a couple's night, I guess, and. He says we all love stand-up comedy, so he says to us, "Hey, I found this really small private comedy club show that's going on tonight. It's at a secret location. So should we buy tickets to it?" And we're all like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" We had gone to Punchline Comedy Club in San Francisco a couple nights before, which is a famous comedy club in San Francisco. They've had all sorts of world-class comedians perform there, got their starts there, Dave Chappelle and so on. So we're like, yeah, sure, let's keep this train rolling on the comedy tour. And we pull up to this secret location place.
Yeah, free tickets, secret
it's called
location.
The Condor.
Yeah.
And it has a big sign out front that says Condor Topless Bar. And we walk in, And I'm like, oh yeah, this is it right here. So we walk in and there's just a stage in the middle with a pole.
Yeah.
And a bunch
the pole
of
was not
booths.
telling jokes.
Pole was not telling jokes. I made a comment. James said the bar was set really low for this comedy show, and I said it should have been set perpendicular to the floor. Turns out we're at a strip club, and they just happened to have a comedy show there.
Comedy show.
It was a pretty interesting night.
At a strip club. And I was the first thing I said. I was like, James, interesting choice of venues. You know, his wife was next to him. I was like, do you have a lot of work meetings at these secret comedy shows? Yeah, we got catfished. Free tickets, secret location. Should have been red flags going off in my head. But hey, I had a great time, man. It was funny because it wasn't funny. Like the comedians,
the comics were bad, man.
there was one guy that was okay. The rest
there was
weren't
one
good.
guy who's good, but yes.
And that just made it even funnier for me. But honestly, the funniest thing about that entire experience was looking at all y'all's faces the whole time, because that was the greatest part for me. And then, you know, I'll go a little bit further. I'm assume that nobody here has been to a strip club before, because you guys are all good little boys and girls. But all three girls, you know, Calvin's girlfriend, my girlfriend, James's wife, all decided they're going to go to the bathroom at the end of the show at the same time. And there's three, you know, pretty good looking dudes, you know, like very handsome dudes, you know, chilling in a booth.
We were pretty much the
think-
only dudes in there.
what
There
do you
weren't that
think
many
happens?
people there. So
Yeah, we got talked to. Matthew, dude, we were inviting everybody. You must have not been watching. But yeah, we were getting talked to, or what's the correct term, Calvin? We were being propositioned, and
yeah, I guess you could call it that.
and yeah, perfect timing for the girls to come out of the bathroom. And yeah, we'll move on here. So, Calvin, I'm looking here at the standings. This shit is absolutely crazy to me. Portland is the number one seed in the Western Conference at 4-1, and they're tied with Utah, the team that I have been talking trash about all offseason long. They're 4-1. Phoenix, another team I've been talking trash about, is 3-1. And then you
That's
look
right,
here
just blew away the Warriors last night.
You look here at the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee's your pick, I think, right, to make the finals. They're 3-0. Cleveland, I thought they were going to be good. But, you know, it's only a few games into the season. But I want to hear from you, Calvin. Who would you say is the best team so far that you've seen in the NBA?
I think this is an easy one. It's Milwaukee, and I don't think it's that close. There have been a lot of really surprising teams to me so far, but Milwaukee's total body of work, they're the only team in the league holding opponents to under 100 points per game. Giannis is just absolutely ridiculous right now. I think it's 32.5 points, 12.5 rebounds. The dude's shooting 70% from the field, 50% from three. Like he's having an incredible start to the season. They're very balanced as well, and they still don't even have Chris Middleton. So to me, Milwaukee is by far the best team.
I saw a stat saying, well, first off, real quick, if you guys are big fans of the Condor Club and Calvin's story, make sure you hit that like button. Anyways, I saw a stat today showing that Giannis in the past 2 games has had like 86 points and 28 rebounds or something like that. Absolutely ridiculous, dude. That's looking like one game for Wilt Chamberlain. But yeah, he's looked every bit of the part. You know, Golden State, who we had been talking about all offseason, the champs, right? They got better. Draymond Green punching people in the locker room, or sorry, on the court, probably in the locker room also. We just haven't seen that video yet. They're 2-2 here. You got teams like Denver, who are getting healthy, 3-2. Minnesota, 3-2. I know you're really high on New Orleans. We saw an injury to Zion, 3-1, but he's back. I think I have to agree with you, Calvin. I think Milwaukee is currently the best team in the NBA. But yeah, it's early, man. It's only 3 games. We'll see what happens. Any players that are early surprises for you? A team or a player? Maybe not the best, but just early season surprises. And don't say Portland. Please don't say Portland.
Well, I was going to say, I think for the team surprises, it's pretty easy, right? Utah, Portland, maybe even Washington if you want to take it a step further in the Eastern Conference. But to me, it's more about players right now. And I'm going to give you 4 players real quick who have impressed me early on. Number one, I know this is going to be a love-hate thing for you. Tyrese Halliburton, man, he is going to run away, I think, with most improved player this season. He's absolutely killing it, albeit on a terrible team. But this season, he is averaging 24 points, 10 assists, basically, 1.5 steals, 4 rebounds. Dude's shooting 43% from three, 52% from the floor. He's been absolutely sensational for them. I want to give a shout-out to Christian Wood, who you and I talked a lot about this offseason as an impact player for the Dallas Mavericks. Dude's averaging 24 points a game in 26 minutes off the bench, as well as 8 rebounds, 61% from three. Has fit in perfectly with this team so far, and I'm still surprised that they're bringing him off the bench, but that's where he stays for now. And then Orlando, terrible team, but they got 2 players I think that are looking pretty good. Paolo Banchero earlier tonight became only the 7th player in NBA history to start his first 5 games of his career with 20 points or more. He's averaging 22 a game right now. They're asking him to do a lot on a bad team, so he is not shooting well at all. But he's averaging over 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1.5 blocks. He really does it all for them. And then how about Bol, Barry?
Bol.
10 points per game in 16 minutes, nearly 3 blocks a game in 16 minutes played. And he's shooting 65%. He did get dunked on today. But he, I think, has found new life in Orlando. He looks good. I think they need to play him a little bit more. They got a terrible team. They might as well.
Did you mention Siakam?
I did not.
Siakam's been playing incredibly well also. He's been shooting the 3 ball well. He's been playing good for Toronto. I think he's only the 3rd or 4th Raptors player to start out a season averaging like 25, 5 and 5 with Vince Carter and some of those other guys. So definitely a good start for him. But yeah, I love the Bol mention. I love Bol, I guess.
Oh,
Bol.
yeah.
Do you call him Bol or Bol?
I think you just call him Bol.
Okay. Oh, you're on a first name basis with him, or is that a last name basis?
We are on a first name basis. First name.
Mr. Bol. I also forgot. I need to give a shout out to my guy Sean Cunningham, who I met at the 10-10-10 club or bar. No, it was not a strip club, but we frequent other places as well. But I did meet him, had a cool conversation with him, and he wants to be on Royal Rebound. So expect that hopefully in the next month or so. Calvin and I are still getting situated. We literally landed last night, or I landed last night, and I've just been kind of getting back to Maui. I haven't even jumped in the ocean yet, Calvin, which I know is a big no-no. So you mentioned players. Did you mention a team?
Well, I said at the top there, the teams are pretty easy to pick for surprises right now, right? I mean, it's Utah, it's Portland.
How about Washington?
Those are definitely the 2 most surprising. I actually mentioned them as well.
Okay.
In the East. Kyle Kuzma has gotten off to a very, very good start this year. Not shooting that well, but he's been their best player. Bradley Beal is still kind of struggling and continues to have injury problems. So,
all right, I want to talk about another team that's a surprise, not to you and I, but probably to fans of this team, and that's the LA Lakers. They are officially 0-4. I mentioned the stat: only 8 teams in NBA history have made it to the playoffs after starting 0-4, and 2 of those teams had Russell Westbrook. He's currently on this team. However, he was not available tonight due to an injury. The Lakers are falling apart, man. They got no 3-point shooters. They can't play defense. They got a rookie head coach, and they got an aging LeBron James. Calvin, what does this Lakers team need to do And could this potentially be the end for LeBron? Like, I know he's going to be breaking some records and stuff like that, but I honestly feel that this is the first time in his career where I'm like, LeBron's probably not going to win another title.
I mean, the window is closing. I don't know how, or the door is closing. I don't know how quickly either one of those things is shutting. But yes, this team, as we talked about a lot in the preseason and in the offseason, they're just not constructed the right way to win. And, you know, you say they're not a good defensive team. They've had their moments. I mean, the defense hasn't really been their biggest problem. They gave up 103 points to the Clippers, 106 to Portland. 110 tonight is still better than, or right around league average. They did give up 123 to the Warriors, but they're the Warriors. So defense, you know, I wouldn't really say is their biggest problem. You mentioned shooting. This team may end up being the worst shooting team in NBA history.
Yeah.
And that's not an overreaction or an exaggeration. You look at their 3-point numbers. LeBron right now, 9 attempts per game, 26%. Anthony Davis, 20%. Lonnie Walker, 17%. Russell Westbrook, 8%. Patrick Beverley, a guy they brought in who was supposed to help with 3-point shooting, 21%. Matt Ryan is the only guy shooting better than 30% from them, and he plays 15 minutes a game and averages 4 points per game. So this team's in big trouble because they cannot score and they cannot shoot, and they're relying on two players who are great players, but they're getting older, and everybody brings up the injury history. This team's in trouble. They're in big trouble.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This team needs another pandemic or something to spark them. I'm gonna knock on some wood here because that was a joke, and I didn't mean it. Calvin, I've been making a lot of jokes, dude. I think all these comedy show, strip club comedy show visits have really got my juices flowing in the brain, not the other ones. But yeah, they need a pandemic or something because this Lakers team absolutely stinks. LeBron needs to get back to the bubble. But yeah, let's move on here. Today was the worldwide debut of Stephen A. Smith's World. This was on ESPN2 during the game. So if you didn't want to watch the game, but you wanted to watch Stephen A. Smith watching the game, you could tune into that. Did you have a chance to check it out, Cal?
I did not. I looked for it, like you said, on ESPN2, but it wasn't on. It was SportsCenter instead. So
okay, good for them. They must have cut it early.
Bummer for me. I missed Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if you ever watched what was that, Vice TV? They had Action Bronson and friends watch Ancient Aliens.
Yep.
That show was hilarious. He's getting a haircut. He had like Rob Van Dam on there. They're all smoking weed. It was very, very entertaining. Stephen A. Smith is not the same guy to me. Like, I don't know how long I could watch that with him just screaming, right? Like, normally people scream at the TV when they're watching games, but Stephen A. Smith just screams all the time. So I couldn't tell when he was screaming at the TV or he's screaming at the camera. But I like the idea. Like, ultimately, Calvin, I would love to have a studio where you and I can chill and watch games and kind of do post games and fun stuff like that. So I'm a little jealous in that, but I would not recommend the show at this point. Would not recommend.
Yeah. The bouncer brought up a good point. I was going to say I'd much rather watch Eli and Peyton as they watch the Monday Night Football telecast as opposed to Stephen A. Smith.
So Eli was on the show tonight for a brief point.
Oh, was he? Okay.
And they had Michael Wilbon, your Chicago guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's going to have guests. He's going to have good guests. He has ESPN's leverage behind him there. No, Stephen A. Smith, it is his world. Like, he's on everything. He's on ESPN from literally sun up till sundown, and
Crazy.
I try not to watch very much of it.
And he's still got time to steal Jalen Rose's girlfriend. That's wild. All right, let's move on here. Bouncer's killing it in the chat. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys show him your ID too, because you don't want to get kicked out of the bar. That's for sure. Calvin, let's talk a little bit about what happened last night in the Warriors-Suns game. Suns win that game. What happened?
Well, that game was back and forth. It was a really, really great game to watch for about 2.5 quarters. Back and forth, highly competitive. Devin Booker had a great game. And all of a sudden, him and Clay get into it. A couple of technicals later, Steve Kerr gets a technical. Next thing you know, Clay gets ejected. Draymond added a technical in there. The Warriors were just throwing technicals around like punches at Jordan Poole's face. And that's why they lost the game, man. They had it. I think when Clay got ejected, they were down 6 or 8 or something like that. Another technical, a couple minutes later, they just gave the Suns too many free points, literally free throws. And then next thing you know, the Suns build a huge lead. They start hitting every three-point shot imaginable, and they never looked back.
I love the shot in there. Yeah, I guess that's what happens when you don't punish your players for beating people up in practice, is it spills out on the court, and everyone thinks that they can just talk to anybody like that. Pretty wild. Alfie Man says, what did Clay say? I think they were just kind of going at each other. Did you hear a specific quote that Klay Thompson said about Devin Booker?
Yes, and the bouncer has it right again. That's why we pay him to watch the door for us. He was just kept reiterating 4 rings, all this stuff.
I saw him mouthing
you're a
it.
nobody. We got 4 rings. Draymond got in there with the 4 rings. Man,
it's getting to his head quick, huh?
I love Klay Thompson, but it's problematic for me if he has to start doing this stuff in order to either get him going or feel like he needs to be still relevant. I mean, I know he's still bummed about not making the all 75 team, but this is not how the Warriors win games. Draymond Green might do this, but the rest of the team does not do this. So I hope that everybody has their moments, and I'm certainly not one to talk. I have definitely been assessed technical fouls in my career and done things that I shouldn't have done, said things that I shouldn't have said. So I understand where he's coming from, but that's literally why the Warriors lost this game, because they ended up with 4 or 5 technical fouls in the span of like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be getting to their head pretty quick. I know everybody, myself included, has loved Klay Thompson and how quiet of a player he is, right? And probably the same thing for Curry, right? He does his little dance moves, but he's relatively quiet. These guys have been hanging out with Draymond Green too much. They're starting to act like him. And yeah, like you said, that's not good for them in their title chances. Draymond's got to be the enforcer. He's got to be the expendable guy that can get ejected in games, not Klay Thompson and not Steph Curry. So we'll see what they do here. Jordan Poole's kind of got that attitude a little bit as well. So we'll definitely see what happens. We'll keep an eye on the Golden State Warriors. The 2-2 Golden State Warriors. The Kings are playing them, I believe, in another week or so. So that'll be interesting to see. Let's move on here to Steve Nash. Steve Nash gets ejected tonight for the Brooklyn Nets. Nets lose again. They have not been playing well. Ben Simmons didn't attempt a field goal in the second half of this game. I feel like I've said that before. There's deja vu here. Don't see Steve Nash get ejected a lot, but he was very animated on the sidelines. The players had to step in. He's feeling a little bit of heat here. I just want to say, Calvin, Steve Nash is probably the first guy to go on this Brooklyn Nets team if they continue to lose games, right? If you're Kevin Durant, you want Steve Nash fired, all you got to do is lose a couple more games, maybe take a play out of the Kings book, have a guy sitting courtside, throw up on the court, and Steve Nash is out of there. What do you think about this? Is Steve Nash feeling the heat? Is he on the hot seat right now? Or you think he's no matter what, he's good this year?
No, definitely not. When your best player demands a trade and then says the only way I'll keep playing for you is if you fire the head coach, you're on the hot seat. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your coaching history is. And Steve Nash doesn't have much of that to go off of, right? I think that he is absolutely feeling the heat. They struggled all year last year, and he got, I don't want to say he got a pass because that's not how I view it. But basically everyone said, well, the team wasn't healthy. Kyrie didn't play. His brain was injured. Kevin Durant's foot was injured. Joe Harris's ankle was injured.
Ben Simmons'
and then they
brain
trade
was
for Ben
injured.
Simmons, and Ben Simmons' brain and his back are injured. So that was the whole, that was their whole issue last year, was they just didn't have a complete team. Now they don't have that excuse anymore. And the whole issue of how are we going to use Ben Simmons, that falls on Steve Nash when he plays him at center, the way he matches him up. I still think Ben Simmons hasn't played in a long time, so it's going to take time for him to really get comfortable again. But we're saying the same things about him that we said when we last saw him play. The hesitation or the uncomfortability, God, that wasn't right, on offense, not looking to score, not
Making
looking
up
to
words
shoot.
here, huh?
I know, right? I'm just too animated, I guess, about the Nets. But no, Steve Nash is definitely on the hot seat, and if this team continues to lose games, he will not last the rest of the season. I believe that.
Did you see Kyrie's post game this just tonight, where he's talking about like, oh, you guys bring up Ben Simmons over and over again. The dude hasn't played in 2 years. Give him a fucking break. He's on his side. And we heard just last week, right, that Kyrie and Ben Simmons have had some bonding moments because they both kind of been at it with the media. And like you said, they both have brain injuries. So maybe they're kind of on the same wavelength here. But interesting. We'll see if this team can get some chemistry
Kyrie's
going.
right.
Because
I rarely say this when Kyrie speaks, but Kyrie is absolutely right in this instance about Ben Simmons.
And, you're right. This team is healthy. Like, Joe Harris is back, a great shooter. You have the band is back together, right? You have a lot of talent. This team could be one of the most talented, if not the most talented team on paper. But they're not playing well on the court, so they need to figure it out. And I agree with you, Calvin. I think Steve Nash is the first guy to go if they can't make it work. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on that. Is Mike D'Antoni still assistant coach? Does he take over?
Oh man, that's a good. I should know whether he is. I want to say yes. I know Amari Stoudemire's still there, but
okay.
I'm not sure about Mike D'Antoni.
If Amari's the head coach, man, I like Amari a lot, but I don't think he's got enough retinas to be a head coach.
Oh man!
All right, let's move on here. So Steve Nash, first ever ejection tonight as a head coach. You pointed out as a head coach.
Yes.
All right. Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers were 4-0. Now they're 4-1. Lillard leaves the game with a calf injury. Calvin, that brings us to...
Yeah?
Barry, what are you doing?
You kidding me? She's hot as hell. Looking for a little slap and pickle.
You sure you want to do this, man? You're drunk.
I'm drunk. You're drunk. Everybody's drunk.
The drunk take of the week. Damian Lillard, if he keeps it up, is an MVP candidate, and the Portland Trailblazers will be top 4 in the Western Conference. Calvin, what are your thoughts on the drunk take of the week?
Well, I mean, obviously he's got to keep it up, right? But I think we expect this from Damian Lillard. This is not why they're off to a 4-1 start. I think it's the other guys. Jeremy Grant has been a good addition. Maybe hasn't played as well as they would have hoped, but Anthony Simons has again seeming to take his game to another level. It's the collective group of guys that we weren't really sure about. They had all these question marks, right? Jeremy Grant, Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, the list goes on and on and on. All of these guys have played really, really well in their roles together. So if that all continues, they do have a chance to be a top 4 team in the West, as crazy as that sounds. And yeah, I mean, look, Damian Lillard to me is one of the best players in the league. So if he's performing to his peak ability, he should be an MVP candidate, no doubt.
You remember when we were at the first game, and I looked at you, Calvin, and I said, how many draft picks would you trade with De'Aaron Fox to get Damian Lillard? And what'd you say?
I said none.
None.
Today.
No, this was last week, not today.
No, I mean, as in this season.
You're like, I'm not trading De'Aaron Fox for Damian Lillard straight up right now.
I would not trade.
I love the confidence.
I don't know about that, but look, I really think that you're seeing De'Aaron Fox, unlocked, unleashed. He's comfortable enough now in the league. He knows exactly, the ins and outs, and I think the team and the coach around him is the best that it's been since he came into the league. So if this is what De'Aaron Fox is going to look like under those circumstances, I'm not going to mortgage my team's future to get back a point guard who is also going to average about the same number of points a game.
It's a good thought, man. You've been doing a lot of Kings post games, man. The homer takes are starting to come. I'm loving it, Calvin. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm loving it. In other news, KCP Kentavious Caldwell-Pope leaves the game with an ankle injury. I can't even keep track of this guy, dude. Was he on the Nuggets now?
He is on the Nuggets, and he's been a great addition for them.
Interesting. So unfortunately, he leaves the game. I think he had to get like basically carried off the court, or just helped off. Couldn't really walk well. So shout out to him. Hopefully he can recover soon. It's early in the season, right? So it's kind of like mixed feelings when you have an injury this early on, right? It's like, okay, well, I still have a chance. If it is a serious injury, I still have a chance to come back later. But at the same time, everyone's starting to kind of get into the feeling here. And if you're not there, you're kind of set back a little bit. So unfortunate situation for them. Calvin, let's talk about the Jazz and the Spurs. I know we talked about them briefly at the start of the show, but we're kind of wrapping things up here, and I want to end on a good note. So let's end on the Utah Jazz. They're a good team, Calvin. They're 4-1 right now, and the San Antonio Spurs are 3-2. I know these are two teams that were hoping to win the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, or potentially, get a Scoot Henderson in there or something like that. But these teams collectively are 7-3 right now. Give me your thoughts, and don't tell me it's too early.
Well, it is too early to peg them as actual contenders in the league, but they've played really, really well. You got to give them credit. Look, Utah, they were just kind of a team that was slapped together, but they have good pieces. I mean, Colin Sexton coming off the bench, Lauri Markkanen, I mentioned him as a guy to watch, early on in the summer or in the preseason. If you play fantasy basketball, he's a wonderful player to have right now. He was kind of hidden a little bit in his last stint with Cleveland. I don't think they really used him the right way. On Utah, he's basically got the green light. So he's able to just jack up threes, and he's a fantastic shooter and a mismatch for a lot of teams defensively. So they've been able to take advantage with what they have so far. And as far as San Antonio goes, they did lose tonight to Minnesota on the road, but Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson have been great for them. Really, really good two-way players. They're shooting it very well from outside. Vassell's at like 40% from three. Keldon Johnson around 38% from three. And each of them is averaging over a steal a game. So they're doing it. That's exactly what these guys were, brought into this league to do. And I think they're finally coming into form in San Antonio. So they've been fun to watch and surprising teams for sure. I don't expect either one of them to be where they're at come the end of the season, but we'll see.
Brian says there was something about Adam Silver keeping teams from tanking. Yeah, I read some articles on this, and basically they're saying that the only way for him to stop tanking is to stop incentivizing teams for tanking, and that's the draft lottery. Like they've made some small tweaks and stuff like that, but ultimately you're rewarded for losing in this league right now in terms of getting a higher draft pick. So I'd be interested to see exactly what kind of things they change. It's going to be something that happens at the end of the season, not something that he can do mid-season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Also, I did notice they added a new rule this year, or a new blue light now on the court, that signifies if they are reviewing a scoring play, whether it's a 2 or a 3. That's something you and I talked about last season on Royal Rebounds, right? Where there were situations where it was so obvious that that was the wrong call, and they didn't go back and adjust the score. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. But now there's a blue light that'll show up, meaning that that play or a specific shot needs to be reviewed. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I want to let you guys all know that we will be live, like I said, tomorrow night on Royal Rebounds, post-game live, 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. We've also been making a bunch of changes to this channel here and this show. I hope you guys are enjoying this new, beautiful tiki bar background. We have a lot of things in store, some stuff we're working on in the background. Next week, we should be unveiling some stuff, so make sure you stay tuned next Wednesday for Wednesday night parties. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you all for watching. And yeah, the bouncer says hit that notification bell as well. Calvin, any other thoughts before we end the show tonight?
Thanks for watching. It's good to be back, both in Maui and on the show here. And yeah, some Kings basketball tomorrow. So catch us.
All right, guys.
Rebounds.
Thank you so much for watching. And as always, don't forget to tip your bartender.